everyone, it's Shel from Paper Rock TO Studio. Today I'm sharing with you the prompt Madness from November 13th, 2016 for the hashtag November Daily Art Journal Challenge, the 30-day art journal challenge, which you can still join. You don't have to do every prompt every day, and you can still certainly join us. Just use that hashtag November Daily Art Journal on Instagram to post your pages, or really anywhere else, and we'll still be able to find them if you use the hashtag. The prompts are over there on Instagram as well, and at the beginning of the video. So this is a 2-page spread, one of the very last ones in my jelly journal that I made last year. And I have these punch outs from Ann Williamson, Annalise Creations channel. And I think she punches these out of her underpaper, you know, the paper that gets the stuff all over it. So I'm finding that some of it has water-soluble stuff, but I'm cleaning it up as I go. I'm trying to create texture. And these little pieces are pretty thick because they have a lot of paint on them, layers of paint, just lots of different colors, and then she punches them out using different, I don't know if she has big punches or if she has a die cutting machine or what, but she sends them along when she swaps, and I've swapped a few times with her doing tags on G+ and stuff like that. So I have these in my stash and I wanted to use them, or at least some of them. I have a lot of them in my stash. I think she sent them to me twice, so I have a whole bunch. In fact, I have a whole bunch of stuff in a little box that people have sent me through swaps and Happy Mail. And so I glued those on with Liquitex matte gel medium. I like the gel version of it. And then I'm using some watered down white gesso to unify these pages. All the colors are so distracting, and the one on the left is darker than the one on the right, because the nature of sewing in things into art journals like this is that those are actually two different prints. So I tried to make, as I was making the signatures, I tried to make them similar, but they're not all exactly the same. So that's probably why this one is maybe one of the last ones left. It's awfully pink and purple, and so I just didn't use it as quickly as some of the other pages. So then I'm adding some watered down blue, that's the London blue paint, watered down with white gesso to give kind of a more blue colored background. A lot of the little flowery shapes that I glued on there had blue in them, so I'm kind of going more with a blue toned background instead of the pink. And you know, pink, I mean, I like pink, but there's a lot of pink pages in this book, so I've had to tone down a lot of them. So then to add a little bit more texture, I'm using my Golden Light modeling paste through a stencil, and I'm making these droplet shapes. I want to create this texture because I'm going to try to get it to have things, as I'm putting more media on it, I want them to catch onto my pieces of texture and make them show up more. I don't know if that makes sense. Kind of makes sense, but that's what I was doing. So the light molding paste I like the best because it dries really quickly. And of course I use my heat tool as well. Then these are Brusho. These are a powdered pigment. Something you find in Europe, but I got them on Amazon, so I found them. And I also have the Ken Oliver Color Burst, which is a similar thing. It's just highly pigmented crystals or powder, and I'm sprinkling those on and then hitting them with some water, and I'm trying to get them to go down into my texture stuff and catch on all the ridges and pits that are in the stuff that I've stuck on there. And then I'm kind of blotting up as I go because I don't want to get everything too wet because it seeps down into the crease between the pages and gets on other pages. So I'm trying to not go completely crazy, but I'm using blues, purples, and black. The black is very interesting. It's got a lot of different colors in it. It's not just black. It's like got reds and yellows and different stuff in it. So it's kind of a cool one. So once that is dry, this is now a water-soluble pigment. And I know that I'm going to be collaging over this because I already have a plan of what I'm doing. And so I need to seal it. So I'm using my 2-inch brayer and some of the liquid format of matte medium from Liquitex to just roll over it. I'm not going over it over and over and over because I will pick up the pigment onto the brayer and move it to some other places. So I'm just trying to take 1 or 2 passes real quick over it to kind of seal up some of that brusho so that it doesn't go crazy when I start gluing things over the top of it. So now I have some magazine images that I've cut out from a couple different fashion magazines that were given to me by Katie Jordan. She has a channel as well, and she sent me some Happy Mail when I was first doing YouTube. And she sent me a couple fashion magazines to make cutouts of because I don't take magazines, and so I didn't have any. So these are from those. Thank you, Katie. This page has a lot of stuff on it that's from other people. Which is nice when you can go look in your little box of things that people have sent you and cobble things together and use them. It's a lot of fun to do that. Someday I'm going to start up my series again with my tags from the desk where I use different scraps and bits and bobs of things to make tags. I've been so busy with all this other stuff I haven't had a chance to do much of that lately. So I'm gluing those on again with the matte gel medium, and I'm putting it on the backs and then sticking them down and going over the top rather than trying to put the matte medium onto the page, because I do know that even though I sealed that brusho, it still probably has a spot that it's not sealed, and then I'll get it onto the medium and it'll turn blue, and then yeah, my little butterfly wings won't be white anymore. You know, it's a thing. It's a lot of drama. So I'm just sticking it onto the back. Now that piece is a chipboard piece that I received from Peg Robinson in her recent package, and it's like grunge board, like Tim Holtz's grunge board, and then it has dots on it, like texture. It's really cool. So I wanted to use it. I was actually going to use the wings that she sent me as well. There was that same board, but then they were too big to fit. So I switched to these die-cut butterfly wings, which were sent to me in Happy Mail. I think, I'm going to say maybe Patricia Robinson. I don't know. A lot of people have sent me stuff recently, and I did, you know, you can't just mark it. You can't like sit there and say, okay, this came from this and this came from that. So if I got the wrong person, sorry, but they work perfect for this. They fit right on her little shoulders to make her look like she's got cute little wings. So then I'm giving that a good dry, a really good dry. I cut most of that drying out, but it was long. And now this is what Peg had sent me in the package that included that little arrow. This is the stuff I was talking about the other day when I was making that page that has the red boat in the seascape. And I'm just talking to you all like you're following along and you've already seen that video. If you haven't, I'm sorry. It's there on the channel. But I was talking about how I needed something called pastel ground. I had noticed when I was doing that page that you need ridges and bumps and crevices for pastel, because that's what the powders catch onto as you're using the pastel. And I was using a pretty, you know, mellow paper that didn't have a lot of creases in it, and I filled up the creases really fast with the pastel. So then I didn't have pastel ground, so I used clear gesso from Liquitex, which has some sand in it, and I was using that as a substitute. And I said that I needed to add pastel ground to my list. Well, Peg watched that video and she's like, oh, don't buy it. I have a huge tub of it. So she cleaned out one of her containers, filled it up with pastel ground and sent it to me, because that's just the kind of person that she is. You guys should go watch her videos and subscribe to her channel, because she's a really sweet lady and she sends me packages. I mean, ask and you shall receive. So the pastel ground is 10 times better than the clear gesso because it has a lot more sand in it. And when you look in the close-ups of this, you'll see that where I painted the pastel ground over the magazine cutouts, over the face and the hand, it created a whole bunch of texture in order for these pan pastels to attach to. It works perfectly. It works great. You could put this on anything and make it into a pastel board. You know, even a completely smooth piece of like manila or something, you could slap this stuff on there and it would become a pastel board. It's great. I'm Thank you, Peg. Thank you for sending it to me. Now I know that it is something that I want, and I have plenty of it to last me for a while. I asked her, why did you have such a big tub? And she said that it was on sale, and that it was cheaper on sale to get the bigger tub than to get the smaller one, and that's how come she had so much of it. So she sent it to me, and I used it, and it also it matted out that shine I was getting off of those two magazine cutouts. Like before before I put it on there, everything was really glary, and now it's not because, of course, it added all that little sandy medium to it and made it matte. So that's also another nice benefit. So I'm using my pastels, obviously the pan pastels, to color in this black and white image that I cut from the magazine. It was in black and white originally. And my theory was that I wouldn't have to worry about shadows and highlights because they would already be there. But then I remembered as I did it that pastels are not translucent. It probably would have worked better with watercolor, because watercolor would, you'd still be able to see the highlights and shadows through the watercolor because it's translucent. Pastels are actually opaque. These pan pastels are. So not as effective, but I put different weird colors like purples and blues and pinks into the areas of highlight and shadow that were already there to give this kind of a, I don't know, kind of almost scary but not quite look, just kind of a little bit off. Because, madness is the prompt. This was a tough prompt because all I could think about was like sad situations of people being mentally ill. But then I remembered that back in the day, a long time ago, if you were a little bit nuts or you had a mental illness and you talked to yourself or you talked to people that weren't there, that they called you touched. And that meant touched by the hand of God. So they considered people who were just a little bit off to have gotten too close to the brilliance of God and gotten a little bit weird. Or maybe they could communicate with, the other side. That was the way people with these handicaps were thought of, which I think is much nicer than saying, you know what, you're bonkers, you're crazy, you're nuts, you know what you're talking about, then there really is a stigma against people who have any type of mental illness. And mental illness seems to be diagnosed a lot more than it used to be, even just like things like autism. I remember when I didn't know anyone's kid who had autism, and now I know a lot of people whose kids have been diagnosed with autism. So I don't know if it's becoming more prevalent or if it's just being diagnosed more. It's hard to tell on those things. They kind of seem to go in trends. Everyone's got depression, and then now I don't hear about that much about depression anymore, although everyone still has it. But you know what I'm saying? It's like it seems to go in like these little weird ups and down trends of things that are diagnosed. But I was diagnosed myself with seasonal depression when I lived in Kansas because it was dark during the winter, and I just got so sad. In fact, that's what the acronyms for this particular disorder is SAD, because I couldn't get out of bed, and I didn't want to do anything. I just wanted to sleep and just hibernate because it was dark and dreary there, and so I ended up getting a light that I would sit in the light every day. It's like a special lamp, a special sunshine lamp, and that really helped. And then I also was taking antidepressant medication just to function, just to function. So it's real, and people need to, not make a stigma out of it. It's a real thing. The depression's real, and it's hard to get over it, but now that I live in sunny Arizona, it's never dark. So I don't really suffer from that anymore. Not even in the winter. The light does change in the winter, but it's not dark and dreary and cloudy and rainy and gray and cold. And so I'm able to go into the sun every day here in Arizona. Thank you, Arizona. So then I got out my Posca pins. I know you're surprised, you're shocked. I can tell you're like, I can't believe it, she's using Posca pins. Yes, I'm using them again. I like them. And I'm just making some doodles and crazy little things in her hair and on her face and highlighting stuff and adding to the drama of my idea of her being touched. And that's why the hand is coming down and touching her head, because she's touched. She's touched. She's a little bit crazy. In a good way. In the best way. She's creative, that's why. So I think that this page does encompass the prompt. And I didn't know what to do. I was like, wow. Should I make something like the famous painting Scream, where there's like someone with their hands on the side of their head going, ah, I can't take it anymore, or I don't know, maybe March Madness. If I was a basketball fan like my best friend, I could do March Madness. I don't know, but this is what I came up with, and I had fun doing the background. I'm actually not done with the background yet. I think I'm going to add some more to it in a bit. But right now, coloring her lips, and I was having trouble with them. It was just not coming out the way I wanted, and I kept fussing with it for a while here. Her eyes look kind of spooky though. Even just the plain cutout picture, I thought she looked kind of weird. Anyway. I think she was trying to look sexy, but she actually just looked a little bit off. So that's why I picked that picture in the first place. And did you guys know that you can erase pastels? If you didn't know that, my little eraser pen right there with the tiny little eraser, I can actually clean up some of the areas where the pastel went where I didn't want it to go. Which, because of the tools, does happen a lot. It's not as precise as it could be if I had some kind of a better way to apply it, but you know what I'm saying? I don't think there's any better way. Those soft tools are where it's at. It's just they're not quite small enough for me because I'm a fussy detail person. And I think they're more designed to be bigger swaths of color rather than doing teensy tiny little things, like more of an impressionist look instead of trying to color something in that's very tiny. But I'm going to do it anyway because that's what I do. So just having some more fun with my Posca pens, because I could probably do that all day, but I am like trying to make these pages not 5 hours long. So I did control myself eventually. A few little splatters, sure, why not? And then those little dots, when I put the purple on with my fingers, I was able to make that texture stand out, so that worked pretty good. Of course, we got to have some glitter on this one, on the wings and different places, because glitter's awesome. That's just a glitter glue pin, an inexpensive one, with like an iridescent glitter in it. Just putting it here and there. So if you like this video, remember to give it a thumbs up, comment so I know you were here, subscribe, share. All those things help YouTube know that I'm making something valuable, and they will recommend it to someone else who might not have seen it yet. And so when you do those things, you really, really, really help me. And I'm very grateful when you do that. And I like hearing from you, and I do read everyone's comments, and I do respond to everyone. So it might be only thank you, but if you have a question or something, I will absolutely respond and try to answer to the best of my ability. So now I'm putting on my title, and it just says, "She's a little touched." Because she is, but that's cool. Is it crazy or is it creative? That's the question that always has to be asked. And I think that I'm about done with this page. I guess I must have already highlighted the texture with the gesso, with the dry brush. If I didn't, I meant to. I must have already done it, I guess. Very dry brush, just highlighting the texture. Must have already done it. Okay, well, I guess that's it for me. And be sure to watch Peg and Sherry's videos linked down below. Thanks. Bye-bye.